Thank you. Te mana whenua o tēnei rohe, tēnā koutou katoa, te hukamate ki te hukamate, haere, haere, haere. Te huka ora ki a tātou, tēnā koutou katoa. I declare this 2022's first Community and Culture Committee meeting open. Today is Tuesday, February the 15th, and I acknowledge mana whenua and any of the members of the public who are maybe watching. Thank you too to the CEO and all her staff, media personnel and colleagues. So we're moving, there's no public forum and nor are there any apologies. So we're going to item number 3, confirmation of the agenda. I'll move that the committee confirms the agenda without addition or alteration. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Gary. All those in favour? Aye. Wait. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The motion is carried. Item number 4, declarations of interest. Have there been any changes to the register since yesterday's meetings? So we're reminded of the need to stand aside from decision making when a conflict arises between our role as elected representatives and any private or other external interest that we might have. There are no amendments that I can see, so I'll move that the committee notes the elected members' interest register and confirms the proposed management plan for elected members' interests. I have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Lord. All those in favour? Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That's the motion carried. And now we're on to item number 5, confirmation of minutes, the Community and Culture Committee meeting of the 2nd of November last year. I'm very happy to move that the committee confirms the Community and Culture Committee meeting held on 2nd of November 2021 as a correct record. Thank you. Thank you for seconding, Councillor Houlihan. Is there any discussion as to the correctness of the record? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That is the motion carried. And now we're on to item number 6, the minutes of the subcommittee and board. That's the grant subcommittee meeting of 29th of June last year, page 21 of the order papers. I'm very happy in the absence of the Deputy Mayor or the chair of that subcommittee to move. That the committee notes the public minutes of the grant subcommittee meeting held on the 29th of June 2021. The seconder, someone who's there, thank you, Councillor Walker. No discussion, is there? She said hopefully. Okay, all those in favour? Against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The motion is carried. Item number 7. Grant Subcommittee of the 29th of September 2021, that's on page 24 of our order papers. And I'm very happy again to move that the committee notes the public minutes of the Grant Subcommittee meeting held on the 29th of September last year. Thank you for seconding, Councillor Gary.
I was at that one.
Oh, awesome. I could have given you a chance to move. Anyway, let's proceed. Is there any discussion on the correctness of the record? Okay, I'm going to put it. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Thank you. That is the motion carried. More minutes. Item number 8. The Grant Subcommittee of 17th of November, meeting of 17th of November last year. Thank you, Councillor Allen.
I have a question.
Oh, okay. Yes. Ask your question, sir.
Thank you, Councillor DeFiso. On page 38 of our papers, There is, I'm looking for it, is the Auckland Diving Community Trust received $1,000. And I just wanted clarification on that.
I myself can't recall it either. Does anyone from the sub who was at that meeting recall? Councillor Elder?
My recollection is that there was a diving competition to be held at Moana Pool. It was a national event, and so that's why that's there.
Okay,
It was based in Dunedin. That's
okay.
my recollection,
So-
but I can't be too sure of that.
Okay, so it was for, so was it for about the management of the event and activities around the event? I'm just wanting to clarify that it wasn't for the Auckland diving community to come to Dunedin or anything like that. It was specifically related to Moana Pool.
Yeah, that's my recollection.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
I hope that answers your question. Thank you. Are there any more discussions as to the correctness of the record? Yeah. So I'm very happy to move, and I think Councillor Aldo, did you put your hand up to second? Yeah, thank you. Gonna put it. All those in favour? Against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That is the motion carried. And now we're on to more minutes of the grant subcommittee. That is the 24th of November, item number 9, page 47 of your order papers. And I'm very happy to move that the committee notes the public minutes of the grant subcommittee meeting held on the 24th of November last year. Thank you, Councillor Walker, for seconding. Are there any discussion items as to the correctness of the record? Your worship?
It's not a, apologies, Madam Chair, it's not a question around the minutes as such, but is it it's more about the fund, and is it a requirement of us dispensing this money that these meetings are held in non-public?
In public. Yes, yes.
The substantive decisions that were made at this meeting are in the non-public part of this meeting for approval. So the decisions were held in non-public, and I'm just asking whether that's a condition that has been required of us by the funder.
Through you, Madam Chair, there is non-public minutes to confirm at the end of the meeting when this committee will go into non-public. There would have been reasons around some of the commercial sensitivity, I understand, for the particular grants, which is why they were held. The grants meeting was held in non-public. So what the committee is doing now is noting the minutes of the meeting before they went into non-public.
Yeah, I understand all that. I'll ask again in the non-public part of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That is the motion carried. And now we're on to item 10, Toitu Otago Settler Museum Board meetings of 20th of September 2023. And I will call on my colleagues, Councillors Elder or Houlihan, to move a motion.
I'd like to move that we confirm the minutes of the Toitu Otago Settlers Museum Board of the September. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Any discussion as to the correctness of the record? Okay, I'm going to put it. All those in favour? Against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That is the motion carried. And now item 11, another meeting of the Toitu Otago Settlers Museum Board.
I'm happy to move the minutes of the Toitū Otago Settlers Museum Board as of Monday, the 8th of November 2021, to be a true and correct record.
Are you seconding, Councillor Hoolan? Thank you. Any discussion as to the correctness of the record? Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Thank you. That is the motion carried. And now we're on to reports. Item 12. Actions from resolutions of community and culture committee meetings, page 58. Are there any questions? Okay. Yep. Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question around the Chinese New Year and the sustainability going forward. I had someone contact me about fireworks, and I was wondering if the council was going to be setting a policy around the use of fireworks for events.
Through the chair, we haven't talked about a policy as such, but we do recognise the importance of fireworks, in particular to the Chinese community. But we are looking, as the report update says, around sustainability, which would encompass the use of fireworks generally. But it's obviously an ongoing conversation.
Thank you.
Your Worship.
Tēnā koe, Madam Chair. My question's on the same, well, sparked by the same entry in the spreadsheet, and it's not clear to me whether that is specific to Chinese New Year or whether it's a higher level consideration of civic events and where it's come from. And I know it links to the resolution but doesn't tell us what that is. So it's a formatting question really as to how difficult it would be for these open actions where they refer specifically to resolutions for those to be included or at least be able to link to them somehow.
Through the chair, I think
I'll jump in. That would be really difficult in the form that we have.
So how do we easily find? I don't think it doesn't necessarily need to be on this page, but we need to be. What's the easiest way of then finding resolution CO2/2020/020?
Searching the minute, but I'll check with the GSOs about a mechanism and let councillors know how you can do that.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Elder.
Just on public open actions, community and culture committee resolutions, I don't see, for example, our resolutions about the music action plan and things like that. And I was just wondering if that has all the resolutions up to date on there, or is that not where it should be, rather than the actions or the forward work program? Just a question.
I thought that was a 10-year plan, wasn't it? It's council.
I think through the chair, I believe that's a resolution of council, but we'd have to check and get back to you, councillor.
Are there any other questions? Thank you. I'm very happy to move that the committee notes the open actions from resolutions of the Community and Culture Committee meetings. Is a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Gary. I'd just like to record my thanks in moving the motion. I'd just like to record my thanks as always to the CEO and to staff, and in particular Mr. Pickford and his team, just for keeping us going and doing as we request. So thank you very much for everyone's mahi. Good luck for the rest of the year. Any other speakers? Okay, I'll put it. All those in favour? Any against or any abstentions? Thank you, that is the motion carried. Item number 13, the Community and Culture Committee Forward Work Programme. Page 62 of our order papers. Are there any questions? Cool. Cool. Okay. There being no questions, I'm very happy to move that the committee notes the Community and Culture Committee forward work program is shown in attachment A. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Houlihan. Anyone wishing to speak to this? Thank you, I'll put it. All those in favour? Any against or any abstentions? Thank you, that is the motion carried. And now we're on to item 14. Yeah. We will welcome two young women who are members of the Dunedin Youth Council. No, I don't have to. They don't wish to, but where's Ms. Tallulah? Oh, okay.
Tallulah's with Jayushka.
Okay, thank you, Ms. New. Tēnā kōrua, Ms. Pratap, e rawa ko Ms. Costa. Thank you so much for your presence today and your report. Tēnā kōrua.
Tēnā koe.
Before I open up to questions from my colleagues, do you wish to make any opening remarks as regards to your report?
No, thanks. We are open for questions now.
Thank you. Colleagues, questions? Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and yeah, welcome guys, and thank you for this report. And I guess the question is in the context of the difficult times it's been the last couple of years. You've probably been asked this already, but how do you cope with planning, and how do you strategize moving forward in the context of the continuing COVID Omicron situation?
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Walker. So we've shifted our focus to very much like our online presence. So focusing on what things we can do through social media and all those kind of online platforms. We have separated roles like liaison as well as social media manager. And we currently have also put together a graphic designing team, so we can keep up to date with our youth and Ōtepoti through those platforms.
Fabulous. It sounds more organised than lots of organisations. And the second question is, congratulations on the new intake, and actually know some of them. Are you pretty impressed by the amount of talent you've managed to attract?
I'm extremely impressed with the representatives we've brought into the council this year. I think we have an amazing group of people, and they're really awesome, and it's such a good environment to be in, and I think we're really going to get some good work done in the next year.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Good luck.
Thank you, Councillor Elder.
Kia ora and welcome, you beautiful young ladies. I'm just talking to this year being, I probably will call it Omicron year, and already Musselburgh School is affected. And I'm just wondering what the youth, the Dunedin Youth Committee will be doing regarding supporting your colleagues and schoolmates and around this issue this year.
Thank you. So already we have put together some infographics around mask wearing, because it's an issue, because now we have to wear masks at school, so we notice people maybe not wearing it correctly, or like what is like the safest protection that is available for students to be wearing every day. So we're just kind of working on educating youth, especially because sometimes if they come from a place of not understanding the importance of mask wearing and things like that, as well as upcoming like mental health weeks. We also want to go after the well-being of our youth, and through that we would like to advocate for that and spread more awareness.
Oh, thanks. I think you guys do an amazing job, and it's good that you're reaching out to all the schools.
Kia ora, Councillor. Councillor Gary.
Kia ora, ladies, and welcome, and great to have you here. I heard you say that wellbeing is one of your themes, and I wondered what other themes you have as you consider projects for this year.
Thank you, Councillor Gary. So we do have quite a few ideas going into this year. As I said, we've got around 2/3 of new people, which means that that's a lot of new ideas coming in. And it's great because we all have a lot of the same views. I think working forward in the next few months, we want to look at the themes of race relations and it's not my mind, but we have a few more things we want to be focusing on in the next 6 months, especially that, yeah, want to work on.
And presumably, I mean, you've got different challenges to the previous council. Can I just ask, I was impressed too with the number of applicants you had. And I wondered whether you thought the online presence and the online application, I don't know if that was a change from before, but did the way you approached it, do you think that was why you got such a great response? What do you put it down to?
Personally, I think the more promotion, getting the word out there, whether that's through word of mouth, through social media, because we've in the past, we also had the online submission of the application. So there wasn't much change there, but we also introduced various different forms of applying, including, a video recording. So other forms of media that make it more accessible for more people. So that was something that I guess would draw more people in. So yeah, those are some of the ways we did.
Good luck with your work and good luck with your year.
Thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair. I believe the Mayor actually had his hand up before me. No, you don't. Okay. Kia ora koroa. I just wanted to ask about the youth space. It's been an ongoing request from young people throughout the city, and I see in one of our reports coming up that there've been engagements through the Otago Polytech, and it was going to be reported back to the Dunedin Youth Council. And I wonder if this is one of your priority pieces of work for this year.
So at the moment, we've only just had one meeting so far into the year. So I don't think we have mentioned that so far as to those updates that you've mentioned with the Polytech. So I don't think we'd be able to answer that at the moment, but we could come back to you guys later in the year.
Oh, great. It's mentioned that there'd been 200 young people surveyed. So yeah, I'd hoped that you guys had been involved and were looking to take it forward. I have a young daughter as well, so I know there's a big lack in the youth space in the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kia ora, Your Worship.
Kia ora, Madam Chair. Tēnā kōrua, thank you for coming. My question's also on not so much the application process, but great to see such enthusiasm, and disappointing, as you've noted, that only 1 in 3 of those people could be successful because of how the council is set up. But has the group turned its mind to how to keep those other students engaged in the wider work somehow? Or is that something you'd be open to considering? Because it would seem a shame to not put that energy to good use in some way.
Yeah, that's for sure. Thank you, Mayor Hilkins. I think we definitely want to have a lot of engagement with the schools around Dunedin through the people who are in our council. So we've only got 2 high schools, I think, that aren't represented, but that means we have a lot of schools involved though. And I know that a lot of the councillors in the youth council are very involved in their schools. We have very involved and very open people who I think we'll be able to get a really good outreach through our council to be able to get to everyone, like get as many people engaged as possible, especially through our new social media platforms. And yeah, just having so many new faces, and it means new people we can reach through our councillors.
Yeah, and I like to mention we also have 1 homeschooled student, so that's community that we touch into.
Great, thank you.
Kia ora. Are there any other questions? Thank you very much to you both. Just looking for a mover of the report. Thank you, Councillor Walker. Seconded by Councillor Elder. Do you wish to speak to the report?
Yeah, just very briefly, Madam Chair. Obviously, it's as we've read, it's an excellent report, and just listening there to the competent way in which Ms. Pratap and Ms. Costa spoke, I think we can all agree around this virtual table that the future of this city is in extremely safe hands, and and good luck to them. And I think with the talent they've recruited, there's no doubt that we're going to continue to benefit from the youth and of the Dunedin Youth Council. So I'm extremely chuffed. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Okay, it's been moved that the committee notes the Dunedin Youth Council. Oh, sorry. Aroha mai. Councillor Gary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to note the importance of a youth voice around our table, given the average age of councillors, and delighted to see the fresh ideas. I think you're acknowledging the past work of the past youth council and those members that have returned, but having fresh people brings fresh ideas, and clearly there's a lot of passion and enthusiasm. And I was particularly taken with the themes you've already identified of well-being, because it's never been more important for our young people to focus on that. Race relations also, and no doubt climate change will be in there as well as other ideas. So just encourage you in your work and acknowledge the importance of it and the importance to us of your work, and wish you the very best for a productive year in these very challenging times. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Kia ora. Any other speakers? I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Against? Abstentions? Thank you. That is the motion carried. Thank you again. Tēnā kōrua. Item number 15, the Community and Culture Activity Report for the period to 31st of December 2021. This is in parts. So part A is GLAM, Galleries, Libraries and Museums Activity Report. That's page 71 of your order papers. Welcome, Mr. McGregor.
Kia ora.
Do you have any opening remarks? Or?
No, I don't. I'm just happy for the report to read as read.
All right. Mr. McCracken's very happy to take the report as read. Councillor Barker is going to open with questions. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Chair. Just have an overall question on our cover page on page 70. Paragraph 8, it says a review of linkages between current levels of service and council strategies is also in progress and will be reported on in future activity reports. I'm very aware, obviously, that there's some work going on at a higher strategic level, but I do wonder what will be the date and when will we be receiving reports about the strategies.
I'll jump in there. The linkages between the various strategies and the activities of council will start appearing in the next round of activity reports.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I do have some other questions around on page 82 around Ulverston. My first question is, did you notice any increase in your Google Analytics or visitors post the royal treatment?
I don't have that that particular detail to hand, I'm afraid, Councillor.
Okay, so I just wanted to understand some of the metrics, and I was a little confused because there is a metric about if 18% of Dunedin residents visiting, and it says that this is, I think it said it was on track, but the number of 18,000 would be equivalent to around sorry, 18% would be around equivalent to around 26,000. However, there's been 3,875 visitors. So I'm just a little wondering how those figures put together, and that's just, I guess, for future reporting, perhaps. The other question I have is that since council, I guess, doubled its subsidy to Ulverston from $300,000 to $600,000, what is there any special locals price or any work being done to attract the ratepayers at a special rate so they can go and visit Ulverston?
I believe that if a returning ratepayer can visit for free, if they bring paying customers with them, but not currently, no.
Is that well publicised?
We could probably, you're correct, Councillor, through the chair, that could be publicised more. I think there is a cheaper rate for residents as opposed to visitors. I may be wrong, but I think there is. But it's one of those things we can always publicise more.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gary?
Madam Chair, just on page 83, item number 29, just a very small detail, but do we have the name of the fellow Otago Boys High School student just to acknowledge that person? We have the other person's name, but not that name. Do we know who that is?
I could get you that detail.
Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you.
Are there any other questions of Mr. McCracken? Councillor Alden?
Thank you, Chair. I was just wanting to ask, given the COVID situation, it's understandable that a lot of international visitors, etc., and those visitations have gone down. But I was wondering, is there a place that we can find out? You're doing a lot of online adaptions, and I was just wondering what kind of things are being done online to help people connect with our cultural establishments. I mean, I know, for example, Ulverston's doing some really great stuff attracting domestic visitors, etc. So is there any other things that is happening to help people connect locally or online?
Through you, Madam Chair, the facilities that I look after absolutely got very good at pivoting to an online provision over the lockdown periods of the last couple of years. We have probably more focused since reopening on the physical experience in the institutions. And while the visitation, is definitely down, our visitors are locals. So what we're getting is the local visitation holding up to what it normally would be, maybe down a little bit, but that's understandable. We're constantly looking at ways of providing safe programming and exhibition experiences for people. But until we go into lockdown, it's not an online thing.
But just to chip in, actually, there's the Toy2 YouTube channel has well over 1,000 subscribers now, and has a really high output of really good quality virtual content, which the team put together, and is really well regarded. So there's that, and as you point out, Councillor, the content from Ulverston is pretty prolific as well in the Facebook space. So it's one thing that we do look at and take seriously.
Just probably just to chip in again, a lot of that content was, is a couple of months, couple of years old, but it still has currency, ongoing currency for our visitors.
Yes, and I was just wondering how the click and collect is going for the library, for those who feel it's unsafe for them to go there?
Through the chair, so the click and collect service is now available through all our libraries and in our community libraries as well. The uptake hasn't been huge, but it has been one of those things which has been used, and people have been really grateful to have that service in place.
Thank you.
Councillor Raddick.
Yeah, just coming back to Councillor Barker's question, I may have missed, but I didn't quite catch the answer to her question, which seems slightly anomalous. On 13 is slightly anomalous. Is that in fact a misprint where it says 18%? Should it in fact be 1.8%? Because it looks at the numbers.
Sophie Barker's
3,835. 1.8%.
Sorry, Councillor, which you're referring to Ulverston? Which page?
13, yes, page 81.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to get back to you on that one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Your Worship.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Can you just confirm for me, Mr. Pickford, the question goes to entry charges or otherwise, but those are they not set by council under fees and charges through our draft budgets, or are they run through a separate process?
No, through the chair, you're correct, Your Worship, that they are set through the annual plan by council.
Are there any more questions for Mr. McCracken? I think you're free. One respect. Mrs. Lanini is now coming to be part of the discussion of Part B, Community Development and Events Activity Report on page 88 of your order papers. Do you wish to preface the discussion with any remarks?
No, thank you, Councillor.
Take the report as read. Are there any questions? Councillor Gary.
Can I just check, can you see when the little hand raised sign is up or not? You can, okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Lanini, and thank you for all the work and the report. Just a very small detail, just in the interest of accuracy. In item 3, it talks about 11 young people selected to serve on the Youth Council, but in the Youth Council report, it says 13. Is it 13 or is it 11?
It is 13 at the time of writing, and I think we've confirmed 11, but there are 13.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. I understand. Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions? Awesome. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'll just remind myself we're on item 15, and the recommendation is that, or the motion, that the committee notes the update reports on the galleries, libraries and museums activities, other toy activities and the community development and events activities. I'm very happy to move. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Houlihan. Is there any discussion? Anyone wish to speak? Councillor Vandervis.
I've raised this issue before, but I believe, given that we have the statistics in front of us now for Toitu, Ulverston and the Chinese Garden, that we are looking at another year of collapse of visitation. That's not that that's anybody's fault, but what we haven't done is react to that by restructuring permanent staff numbers. I don't believe it's appropriate for us to keep carrying staff numbers that were pre-COVID at a time when we had large visitation from cruise ships and overseas visitors, to carry those same staff numbers on in Toitu, Ulverston and the Chinese Garden. Probably the art gallery as well come to that. So I would just like to suggest that given that we are probably facing another year without overseas visitors, that we look at what really is needed in terms of keeping Toitu, Ulverston and the Chinese Garden going.
Thank you. Councillor O'Malley. You're on mute.
I thought I was coming after Councillor Radic. Sorry there. I'm just commenting on some of the numbers that people have been noting. And I have a feeling that what we're looking at is the residents' opinion survey is used to develop the percentage of Dunedin residents attending these things. And what I would suggest is that if that is the case and the numbers are in fact correct, we have another example of a mismatch between the residents' opinion survey data set and the other measurement data sets. And if that's the case, I think it's something that we should look at quite closely, because according to this, you know, somewhere between 10 and 15% of the people filling out the residents' survey are attending Ulverston, but we don't believe that that number of residents are actually attending. So if that's the case, these numbers are quite skewed, and I think we need to take that into account.
Kia ora. Councillor Radic.
Like to mention, before I talk about the other topic I was going to talk about is Councillor O'Malley, the point Councillor O'Malley was just making. I was looking at the actual numbers to get 1.8%, which tie in with the other annual figures, and I think the numbers that we are seeing in the chart are correct. It's just a misprint with the anyway, that was my contention. Anyway, that's not what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to talk about is we have all of these facilities here, and one of the things, the star performer of all these facilities in terms of retaining their audience is the art gallery. And I would just like to suggest that one of the reasons for that is the fact that there is a Dunedin Public Art Gallery Society, which is quite active in terms of attracting people to the gallery and enrolling people, well, you know, yeah, just getting people to participate in gallery events and bringing audience numbers up and engendering a love for the gallery. So I would like to suggest that each of the other attractions form a society, if they don't have such a thing or part thereof already, to deliberately go out there and, you know, discuss, for instance, Lanyuan, the various facilities, events and possibilities for use of the Chinese Garden as an example, and bring in and actively, you know, dream up events and bring in more people to each of the facilities we have. It does appear that, you know, something like that is happening at Ulverston, because there have been a number of events in the last year, and I absolutely commend them for that. But I'm really just speaking to the Art Gallery Society, and which is what I'm most involved with. And I have found and observed that the work they do is highly commendable. And I dare say, well, I venture to suggest it is highly effective in keeping visitation to that gallery up. So I'd like to recommend it to all other community facilities as well.
Kia ora. Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor O'Malley for the maths. The target is 10%, which in a population of 130,000 would be 13,000. Therefore, I was just, when only 3,700 or so had visited, that's why I was questioning a little bit of the maths, and that's where we see that disjoint between the numbers. And COVID is a huge challenge for most of the attractions. I'd especially like to commend the Otago Museum, where we see the figures are really holding up, and they've done a lot of work around that. I also wanted to give a shout out to Ulverston. I think earlier was mentioned their social media presence, and I have been following them. They've been doing some amazing stories about a lot of the items in the collection, which I found really fascinating, and also for people to come view the garden. It's not an advertising spot, but I have been really impressed by what they're doing, and a bit sad that the numbers are so low given the excellent job that they've been putting into it. I did ask the question earlier about strategy, and I know I bang on about that one, but when I look up the purpose of the Community and Culture Committee, it is there to deliver on Aratoi, the arts and culture strategy, and monitor the grant funding responsibility for community development and quality of life in terms of the social wellbeing strategy. So I'm desperate to see how those strategies are being delivered on, because what we're seeing here is, numbers visiting museums, etc. I think I had 4 things. Oh, I just want to talk about staff numbers and the city's attractions. I know very well from running attractions like these and from observing the way that they run, that many of the tour guides are just brought in for when there are groups booked. So I think that I'm feeling very comfortable with the numbers that are kept there. So I think that's my 4 points. Thank you.
Kia ora. Your Worship, and then followed by Councillor Walker.
Yeah, tēnā koe, Madam Chair, and I hadn't intended to speak to this. And certainly no criticism of the Art Gallery Society or the Art Gallery Society Council, which governs it. But I think it would be a shame were Councillor Raddick's quite opposite comments be read as a diminishing of the work that the staff do at the gallery. The reason that we have a gallery that is as strong as it is thanks to the efforts, largely thanks to the efforts of the curatorial team and those who manage the acquisitions. And once upon a time that was the Art Gallery Society, but it hasn't been for a number of years now, and they've done a remarkable job, particularly working with our partners in Kaitahu to put together the Paimanu exhibition, which has taken over the Dunedin Public Art Gallery. It is an extraordinary exhibition, and in the beginning of what will be an incredibly important relationship for the collection over time. And again, if it's going to be brought up every time, it needs to be responded to every time. I don't think that a global pandemic is the excuse we're all looking for to cut council staff numbers and therefore cut levels of service through our cultural institutions to our communities, as Councillor Van Evers has proposed. These are institutions that primarily serve our communities and our residents, and it's great that visitors, wherever they may come from, see value in those and visit them and use them, but to shortchange our local residents by cutting back on those levels of service as a result of diminished domestic or international visitor numbers, I think would be incredibly short-sighted and to the detriment of our community's broader well-being, which we are charged with promoting through the purpose of the Local Government Act. Thank you.
Kia ora. Councillor Walker, followed by Councillor Elder.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I also wasn't going to speak either, but I wanted to react to Councillor Van der Vos's comments, but I can't really add anything to point 4 of Councillor Barker's comment and the eloquent response there from the Mayor. So I think nothing has to be added there. I think probably all of us around the table here support that. And also just around, it's just something that Councillor O'Malley raised, and I just want to make it clear, I guess, that for me, after 2 previous committee rounds, that I think we're probably all in agreement that the metrics are deficient in many ways. I don't think we'll have an argument there, but I think it's worth remembering that the CEO has consistently pointed out that the strategic review will hopefully try to address many of those deficiencies. So I guess, again, like most of us, I wait and hope that is the case. Thank you.
Kia ora. Councillor Elder.
Well, as now the mother of 4 children and now the mother of 4 grandchildren, I am a frequenter of all those places. And Dunedin has probably one of the most compact set of cultural institutions that give back to our community of any city in New Zealand. You can probably walk to all of them from the Octagon within 10 to 15 minutes, which is amazing. I went to Christchurch to see my grandchild, help my daughter with the grandchild being born, and visited their wonderful airport museum at Wigram. And I just think when we look at Dunedin's offering to New Zealand, this is one of our huge strengths. And for a lot of domestic visitors, this is a huge strength. But I look at the settings for the government coming up, and the Australian border will start to open. And if we deplete our services at a time when we should be actually getting prepared for visitors to come again, then I think we will sell ourselves short. I applaud all of those cultural institutions and being innovative, being on Facebook, having online stories to tell. And I think they're doing a great job there. And I think the reach through Facebook and other methods is reaching out to a lot of people. The Toitu Settler Museum stories are amazing. So I think it is actually, these are the jewels in the crown of Dunedin. To be able to walk to all of them within 15 minutes is amazing, and to have so many, I think we do a credit as a city to support them and help them to grow.
Thank you. Councillor Gary.
Kia ora, Madam Chair. And the expression "we don't know how lucky we are" seems to be appropriate. And the point that Councillor Elder made around readiness when the borders open is very relevant. But I just want to comment that our cultural treasures are just that. And it showed great vision from our forebears. And if I take 2 examples, Ulverston in terms of that vision in former times and that incredibly generous gift from Dorothy Thurman to the city, which I remind you the city almost didn't accept, which is just extraordinary and ludicrous. And the richness of that, and we've seen that used in the film The Royal Treatment recently. And then Lanyuan, and just the significance of that gift. We are so lucky, so fortunate, and we need to treasure those institutions and not be looking at cutting them back. And Councillor Barker was right on point in terms of the bulk of staff in relation to seasonal work and number of visitors. But I particularly want to take a moment just to thank the staff of those cultural institutions for their considerable mahi in incredibly challenging times. I think we all recognise that, and it's important that we put that on record. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Kia ora. Thank you, colleagues. There being no other speakers, and it's been moved and seconded. I'm going to put it. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Thank you. That is the motion carried. We're on to item 16, the Performing Arts Venue Update. Page 91 of the order papers. And I think we have Ms. Glengarry coming in to speak to this report. And Ms. Wikaida is online, ready to contribute as well. Are there any remarks to be made before questions?
Yes, kia ora, Madam Chair, and kia ora koutou katoa. I'd just like to make a note that point 18 in the report, which lists the people, or the groups that staff consulted and engaged with. We would like to note and apologise that there are 2 groups who were unfortunately left off this list, and they were Well Productions and Stage South. That was an omission from us, and we do apologise. We're open for questions.
Tēnā koe for that. Are there questions? Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to get a definition, just for my own understanding, about what is meant by performing arts. It looks like a lot of theatre people were consulted around this, but I've heard from the music community that they're not necessarily all feeling consulted around the Performing Arts Centre. So I just wanted to understand, is performing arts just about theatre, or is it about music as well, and others?
I'm happy to answer that in terms of this particular update. The Music Action Plan is separate but connected, and venue is certainly part of that conversation. My understanding around what was tasked from May was to go back and connect with the performing arts community around theatre. So that's what's happened here in the limited time that I suppose we've had with COVID, etc.
Thank you. My second question is, I see that there's a group going to be formed, and I wondered how would that group interrelate with the Creative Dunedin Partnership, which is the governing body to deliver Aratoi. So I just kind of wanted to understand how those would work together.
I'll answer that. Kia ora, Councillor. It's our intention that the work, or the roundtable group, that's just a sort of nominal name, could include people from the Dunedin Partnerships Group. There is a crossover there in terms of people on the Dunedin Partnerships Group who are also part of the performing arts sector, of course. And the other thing to note about the roundtable kind of idea, I suppose, is that it's been an idea that has come out of the work that staff have done with the live music group, and it's been a successful approach. And so we've decided to use that similar kind of approach with bringing together this particular community, arts community as well.
So how would people / organisations be selected for the roundtable group? Is it open to everybody that thinks they have an interest in performing arts, or would it be selected?
That's yet to be kind of thought through, but I would imagine that we would try and be as diverse and as open as possible.
Thank you, that's great.
Kia ora, Councillor Walker, and then Councillor Gary.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Glengarry, for this interesting report, particularly the summarised feedback forms, and that's where I guess my question lies. The one thing that, I mean, we obviously know that performing arts don't work without audiences, and the one glaring thing from this report is audience voices. I think I've highlighted about 4 or 5 times. And also, I guess the second one for me is the more inclusion for Māori and Pacifica. Can we be assured that when the Performing Arts Roundtable Group is formed, that these are going to be front and centre of any developments moving forward?
Yes, I can say for both of us that's our intention.
Kia ora, Councillor Gary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Glengarry, I just wanted to check in with you following the considerable consultation that was done during the as part of the charcoal blue work. This was more of a temperature check, was it not, in terms of the COVID environment? We're at a different point now, time has passed, and we're in the COVID environment. Did you feel that you got a really good range of where people were up to, a good sense of that? It certainly seems to be that way from what I've read, but I just wanted to check in with you around that.
Yes, certainly the direction taken from councillors at the middle of the year was to provide an update on where the community seemed to be. So it really has been informal temperature checks, and you'll see that there is certainly strain and stress at the moment in this community because of COVID conditions primarily. I think that there certainly is interest in progress in this particular space as well, that they would like to see the new venue and direction quickly kind of gotten to if we possibly can.
And so my second question would be, there's obviously still a focus on the venue, but how would you characterise any shift in the detail of that, or would there be anything you'd add to that in terms of the report?
Is that around, can I just check that is around the preference around?
Yes, yes, as opposed to people's well-being, yeah.
Yes, everybody would like to see a mid-sized venue who was interviewed. You'll see that we've said almost everyone, because I think the Mayfair obviously want the Mayfair.
Understand.
But there is definite overwhelming support for a new venue.
And my final question was around item 21 on page 96, and the sentence, in addition, the wider public is now aware of Dunedin Venue's proposal to develop a black box performance venue. Do you have any comment around that? Because that was known in public, was it not? But maybe not everyone had kind of cottoned on to that. Would that be a fair comment?
I'll just answer that one if that's okay. So we were very careful not to talk about the black box and the Sims building, which were proposals that staff knew about internally, but we did not discuss with the groups at all over the engagement time, although it became clear towards the end of the year that the black box idea was a known idea. And there was the circulation of a YouTube sort of video where it was spoken about. So it was out there in the community and circulating amongst the community, that particular proposal, yes.
Thank you so much.
Kia ora, Your Worship, followed by Councillor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and a question potentially for the Chief Executive. And I'm just looking at, and the next steps are fine, but there's a gap between there and the eventual project. And I'm conscious that, and I know that there isn't capital budget for this until 24-25, which buys us some time, assuming that the $1 million in that first year is design work that is to be capitalized. And if it's build work, and this is unlikely to be a question that can be answered now, but it would be useful to know what kind of a lead-in time would be required for design purposes to make sure that the capital project timeline doesn't slip.
And you're correct through you, Madam Chair, I can't answer that now, but I'll confirm with Mr. Logie and send an email around just confirming timeframes for councillors.
That'd be helpful, thank you.
Councillor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to follow up sort of Councillor Barker's early questions around the definition of performing arts, and I'm looking specifically at the resolutions of council that are covered in point 9 and the second resolution, CNL 2021-100, which says that the budget will be retained for the future development of a mid-sized theatre. I'm wondering going forward, do we have and it's kind of exactly the same question, Councillor Barker, I'm going to address it in speeches, is do we actually have a formal definition of what performing arts is, and does that actually include live music, or does it actually exclude live music? Because I think it's very important for us to be really clear as to where we're heading next. So do we have those definitions to include or exclude live music? That's directly directed to someone.
I'll answer that. I'm not aware of a definition that we have that defines what performing arts is, I guess, from a council perspective, because what it might be from a community perspective could be a little bit different. But currently we do not have that.
Okay, well, I'll just ask it slightly from a different direction. We're heading towards building a venue, which will be associated with good provision of facilities for performing arts. And I feel, would it not be useful to understand exactly how you plan on using the venue would be basically who you plan to think would be the users. So maybe is there a requirement for a definition of who the users would be?
I think we could perhaps go down that road. I think another thing to note is that in talking to the Māori and Pacifica community, they also don't identify with theatre as such, and the way that they would define the way, their own kind of creative endeavour on a stage is defined differently again, but probably more aligned with performing arts than theatre. So I guess we would have to do some work with the community to understand how they would like to be defined, how that creative endeavour could be defined in terms of venue, and then I think there's a little bit of work for us to do in understanding that.
Thank you, because I will touch it in speeches, but I think that resolution has a specific term, a mid-sized theatre, in it, and I think it's something we need to address in terms of definition. Thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor Elder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is really about you've actually done a lot of engagement and met a lot of people and talked with a lot of people in straitened times, I might add. And I was just wondering how that community's feeling on the revisitation of this topic so that we can clarify what we need. How's that community feeling about the further consultation?
I think that they are certainly expressing frustration at the time frame on this. So they would like to see movement, and I would categorise it as impatience. Certainly they will not want to be asked again what they think about this.
Thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor Houlihan. Sorry.
Thank you. Is there a feeling that the fringe office space will be a good fill in the interim, or not really? Or
They certainly see that as a pilot, as an opportunity to test a space and what may be possible. And that is still, of course, about to be launched, and still I would need to check exactly where they're at with that definite shape, but it looks exciting and we're trying to keep in touch to support and facilitate that.
yes, if we've got the money aside, and if we approve this, what realistic time frame are we looking at, to have a theatre if it was built? I mean, it's not going to be quick, is it?
It would be outside of my level of expertise. 3 years.
I believe it was 3 years, Councillor.
3 years, right.
What
And
I
how
would say, if I could just on that point, through you, Madam Chair, I think it's important. This is a noting report on progress in the work that Ms. Mikaira and her team have done with the performing arts community, however that we define that. And I think it's important to realise that since Council passed the resolution about the mid-sized theatre, a lot has changed for the city and for the community, with a number of other things that have been developed, with the black box proposal, with the Sims facility proposal that councillors have also considered. So this is a timely report to update councillors on consultation and provide an opportunity to have that discussion in the round, to look at actually what the needs are, being clear to define, are we looking at a music venue, a theatre? Are they the same? Are they different? Do they meet the same needs? Are they different communities? And that's the work that the team are doing. And while I acknowledge that there may be some frustration for our community for us to continue engaging with them, it's too important to get wrong. And so we do need to make sure that we have the right conversations with the right people.
Kia ora. Your Worship, followed by Councillor Gary.
Yeah, thank you. And to the question of how long will it take? Well, it's set out in our 10-year plan, the budget for delivering this, and won't finish until the 27-28 year, as is currently set out. So to and I understand the frustration of the community, and to the question of impatience, is the impatience around there being a decision made or an end product delivered? Because it makes me nervous if people aren't aware that in the current plan, nothing will be done until 2028.
I think it's around the process and next steps.
It's fine, thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor Gary.
Happy to move, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any seconding, Councillor Walker, or are you questioning? Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that the committee notes the Performing Arts Venue Update Report. Thank you very much, Ms. Glengarry. Speakers, Ms. Councillor Gary.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. This process has been going on for a long time, and the need for a mid-sized theatre has been clearly signalled since the Fortune Theatre closed some time ago. And there was extensive consultation through the Charcoal Blue work. We have gone back to the community, and I thank the staff for the considerable work in doing so to check the temperature of things, where people are up to, and the very many diverse views within that community, because it depends on what performing arts you're involved with as to maybe what your perspective is. And I certainly am not an expert in that matter, but I do know that if you are involved with opera, your needs will be very different to what you might need if you're pure theatre or kapa haka. And so I appreciate the breadth of that consultation. And thank you, Ms. Wikaira, for ensuring those two were added that we overlooked, inadvertently overlooked. My comment would be, I acknowledge the fact that we have a council that is very committed to the arts. That is something that I am confident of. I believe that we have a council that is committed to progressing this project and wants to get it right for the performing arts community. And this is a noting report in progress along the way. And I commend the next step, really, which is the development of a whole sector approach, working within the performing arts community, a collaborative approach. We've noted that the Music Action Group has been very successful in coming together in a collaborative way to work out what the common threads are. And I would just encourage the performing arts community to continue to work with our Aratoa staff on this, to continue to kōrero on this as we work together to make a decision and deliver this to the community. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Kia ora, Councillor O'Malley, followed by Councillor Vandervis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first want to thank the staff for the work they've done to date, and I think it's good work that they've done to date. My observation, though, is that from the very start of this, all the way back before the Charcoal Blue report, and probably going back to the days that Sammys were bought, there's been, whether there's been mixed messages come from us or mixed hearing coming from the community, I believe that groups that we do not actually intend to ever build a facility for believe that they still might be on the receiving end of a facility. And I think a lot of it comes down to the definition of what we are calling a mid-sized theatre. I would assume, in my feeling, that a mid-sized theatre is something that serves the needs of the theatre arts and is not intended to perform the needs or serve the needs of the live music community. And we need to make a clear call on that, because what we will build will depend on what we are trying to serve. And as Ms. Waikawa points out, kapa haka groups may also be looking for a different kind of venue as well. And until we absolutely certain what it is and who it is we're building this venue for, we're going to have this ambiguity out there in the community. So I hope that in the very near short term, we come to an absolute decision of who is our focus group for who we plan to build this for and who is actually outside it, because otherwise we're going to end up simply going around in a circle and find ourselves back where we were when all these resolutions got passed during the 10-year plan. Thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor Vandiver, sorry, and then Councillor Reddick.
I agree entirely with Councillor O'Malley. I would go further though and say that the charcoal blue report was a waste of $300,000. It didn't address the fundamental issue of what this performing arts venue is actually for. It tried to steer it in a direction that was obviously unpopular with a lot of local artists. We have had, on the back of the DCC failure to support the Fortune, we've had the Fortune debacle. We've had the charcoal blue debacle. We've had the Sammy's development debacle. That is to say, we bought it. We didn't buy it. Our ex-chief executive bought it without any real idea of how it was to be developed. And it just sits there as an embarrassment now, as does the old Fortune Theatre building, that lovely building on the corner of Stewart Street, Moray Place, sitting there again, embarrassingly empty. We have for many years now basically twiddled our thumbs as a council, wasted extraordinary amounts of money that could have easily kept the Fortune Theatre running for a fraction of what we've been spending on getting no results since. And worst of all, we have in our 10-year plan a 17 million budget for the delivery of this, as our mayor says, when we don't even know what this is. We've got the cart in front of the horse. We've got a $17 million budget. We don't know what it's for. It was never properly thought out or thought through. And we now have a whole lot of people vying, a whole lot of opposed interest groups actually, vying for getting a piece of this $17 million budget, if not all of it. I personally believe that we would be much better off going back to square one. If we need to keep the 17 million in the 10-year plan, because that's what we've done, then what we should do is look at apportioning it to either reopening the Fortune as a music venue, supporting the Mayfair Theatre for a major upgrade, rebuild and extension. And if there's still budget to spare, and I very much doubt it because I think we have far too much debt, then there are other options that we could use, that we could use the money for to optimize venues that we already have. The idea that we can start to build a new venue from nothing that will be cost effective, I believe is illusory. We've got a number of barely financed, and in one case, not financed at all, and failed venues as it is. And to simply walk away from those, forget Sammy's, forget the Fortune, forget that we really do have a tremendous number of artists that need venues here, and carry on for years arguing about what sort of venue it's going to be, I think it's fraud. We need to start again.
Kia ora. Councillor Raddick, followed by Councillor Houlihan.
I actually agree with the most positive aspects of all three prior speakers, and I applaud the staff, work and effort they've put into this, true and genuine engagement with the arts sector. And obviously there's a lot of talk about the musicians and music sector being included in this as well, which I fully support. And I think it would be really good to have, the ideas and the thoughts of those stakeholders and those users and users of the venues, not including the audiences, but the audiences also may like to have a voice in the matter, because when all's said and done, we only have a limited amount of money to spend on this new venue or venue of venues. and we have a lot of needs to satisfy. But typically, where there's a will, there's a way, and having all the people around the round table discussing it fully and openly, I think is the best way forward, because at the right at the start of the day, these are our people. This is our arts community, and having them fully involved, I believe, is the answer to getting the best result. And as we've heard from various speakers, some of the imposed solutions or solutions arrived at by other people, other parties, or individual parties haven't fitted the needs and consequently have not been built, and nothing has been done. I would also like to make one further suggestion, that in the interim, it would be possible to establish a temporary facility somewhere, somehow, at very minimal cost, that would keep the arts community in production. Now, I think this is a critical factor in the piece here that we're not actually haven't been talking about so far, because we have a great many artists, performers, but also production crew and capability and skills and experience out there that are not working. And I think that is really quite significant, because after all, what are the performing arts? It's the people who work within it. So establishing some temporary facility that would do in the meantime, purely as a temporary situation, would keep productions going and keep things happening in the city, so that within a few months, I believe we'll be past the COVID thing, and we'll be able to have audiences again. So we should be thinking about that now and getting geared up for the future. So because that immediate future, say in 3 months' time, for the next few years, will keep the people involved in the artistic sector employed, fed, watered, and producing, still actually active. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Houlihan, followed by Councillor Walker.
Thank you. Yes, we have had this discussion actually a few times, and it's sort of come up in our report quite regularly, and it's the similar same things that keep coming up each time. But what I want to say is that I really am very grateful to Ms. Waikara and her team for the engagement they've done with the arts community and the arts sector. And I think they've been quite innovative with some of their ideas, i.e. using the fringe offices as a venue for some productions and stuff, as an immediate fix for some productions, which is a venue that we have now, and they've been able to change it around and, move that space. So I also have concerns about us keep, having the Fortune building sitting there and Sammy's. Both of those are venues that could be used, and if they're not, I think if we're going to move forward with this, we need to look at selling them, because otherwise that money could be put towards something really good, for the city, because otherwise we are having assets just sitting there doing nothing, going to waste. And I've been to the Fortune many times. I did a study on it as well, and my degree's in theatre. But it's not a great space, the Fortune, I have to say. So in an ideal world, if the money was there, it would be great to have a new spot. But people are desperate for something now, ideally, but it's not going to happen. So as the Mayor said, I hope people are aware that the time frame is further down the track for this. But at the end of the day, we are trying our best and trying to do something to please everyone. But I think the black box does seem to me to be more suitable for music. And if it's a really good venue, it might be that bands could use the theatre as well, but a theatre tends to be more for theatre productions rather than bands. But we might be able to get a venue that could do a bit of both, but I think the black box would fix the other problem. The other thing I was sitting here thinking is that we've got Parry Street sitting there, and we had talked about doing a sound a filming area for film companies and stuff there. I wonder if there's any reason, because one of the issues in the band sector is that there's a real lack of practice space, and maybe somewhere like Parry Street, it could have a double benefit. It could be used as a practice space and as a filming studio, for people who visit. So that's something I think maybe we should look at considering. My concern with an Athenaeum, even though I love the location, I think the location is great, is that the council won't be owning it. So we're going to continue to pay more rent than they paid at the Fortune. They couldn't afford the rent at the Fortune. This is my issue the whole way along. While I really want to see us get a venue, is that it's got to be affordable. And I don't think it is currently right now, unless we have something. If we get something we own and own most of it, and the cost is lower, then that would solve a lot of these problems. So yeah, there is a lot to go over, but hopefully we can get to some of these solutions soon rather than talking about them all the time. But anyway, thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor Walker, followed by Your Worship, and then Councillor Barker.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll try to stick to the fact that this is just a report for noting. So and those things are actually in this report. So thanks to both Ms. Wikaira and Ms. Glengarry for this report. And I thank staff for, and I'll use the words of Councillor Gary, of temperature checking, albeit in a creative community in which it would actually be astounding if there was 100% agreement between all the disparate and various interest groups. And there has been lots of talk about, quite rightly, about what the end users, who they will be. But I think we really need to remember that the ultimate end user and the important end user is the audience. And if we do look at the summarized feedback report that we got, that was one of the glaring two words were audience voice. I mean, there was some felt audience voice, and especially diverse audience voices in particular, were not visible in the Athenaeum proposal. Audience voices required to help direct the performing arts venue projects, and so on. So let's not forget that the audience ultimately will use this, and I think this feedback was right in the charcoal blue report. That was rather deficient, actually. So let's not forget that. And of course, in my questions, I also did point out the fact that the feedback did highlight that more inclusion was required for Maori and Pacifica representations. Let's not forget that too. But thank you for an excellent report.
Kia ora, Your Worship.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I'd like to add my thanks to the staff for the diplomacy involved in having a conversation like this on an ongoing basis. And similar to the discussions that have been had with the live music community that came out of a reasonably thorny catalyst, I think we've had far more constructive engagement in recent times born out of those challenges. Councillor Radica suggested that an interim facility might be good. I agree, and as outlined in paragraph 13 of the report, such a venue is coming and will be piloted and programmed to do just that, because I think one of the risks that we have when we're having debates in the 10-year plan is that everyone thinks that all of the things that we are debating are imminent, when clearly they're not. They're spread out over that 10-year period, and this, per our budgets on the current timeline, won't be finished until 2028. And so absolutely there needs to be attention given to what happens in the meantime. And because it became a debate about a large capital project, the discussion has centered around what the best use of building a single new thing would be. And I think sometimes we lose sight of what the actual question is, which is, what does our network of facilities look like across the city that caters to different art forms and audiences of different scales? And some of those will be publicly owned, and we own a number of them. Some of them will be privately owned, particularly thinking of music venues. Some will be community owned, whether that's the Mayfair or the Playhouse or otherwise. Some will be schools. But more importantly, the network as it exists is dynamic. And when we were having this discussion a year or so ago through the 10-year plan, there was no concept of a black box potentially catering to particularly music, comedy, those sorts of art forms of 500 to 800 people in the stadium precinct. That wasn't part of that discussion, nor was the potential of what might happen with the former Sims building in Port Chalmers, and it is right for us for our conversations around how we invest in what is missing to evolve as what is missing changes. And I know that is frustrating for the end user or people who have a particular interest in this, but setting off down a path and then ignoring changes in the landscape in terms of where else there is provision for venues would be a fool's errand. I think the clearest feedback we got out of the 10-year plan process was that you aren't going to build a single thing that is going to cater to all of the need that exists. And we had people from the music community turning up and saying, build a thing for us. The theatre people don't need anything, no one goes anymore. And we had performing arts theatre people turning up and going, no, this is fine, you already have all of these other venues, build a thing for us. And I think we would set ourselves up to fail if we are doing that. But what we do need to make sure is that all of those facilities or an adequate provision of facilities exist across the various art forms and across the city. And we could spend a long time. I mean, I appreciate that it would be great to have a concrete definition of what any of these forms mean, but they are, without wanting to get too academic about it, they are fluid and contested, and I think that's potentially trying to ask the wrong question, or at least it's asking a question that we could spend a long time going round and round in circles trying to answer when we could be looking elsewhere for guidance. But good luck to the staff for the ongoing challenge of trying to reconcile the various needs and various interests. It's not an easy thing to do, as is always indicated when these discussions come back to council. Thanks.
Kia ora, Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair. And following on from the Mayor, I think that it's indeed around looking for the missing link or the missing linkages within the performing arts community. When I came to council and was attempting to find the charcoal blue report and to understand it, I'm like, well, how did we decide that we needed a mid-sized theatre venue? And one of the replies that I got was, oh, well, performing theatre groups that come to Dunedin might miss Dunedin out because they don't have a place to perform. And I felt, well, why should we be providing something for them when we perhaps need to provide something for our own community? And when I go back to because I love a good strategy, the Aratoi strategy, it talks about performing arts, e.g. theatre, dance and music. And I don't think we've talked about dance at all. So there is a very wide group that needs to be consulted. And I applaud going back to, I guess, grassroots. My question around what does performing arts, what's the definition, was because the council has decided that further engagement be undertaken with the performing arts community, and from the report it appeared that the majority of that appeared to be theatre, and I'd had quite a lot of feedback from different parts of the arts community that they too wanted to be consulted. So the report is for noting, and I note that there will be a bigger group, a round table group created, which I thoroughly endorse, and I look forward to all members who consider themselves to be put in the performing arts to join that and help us build a really great network and hub of performing arts in our city as per our strategy. Thank you.
Kia ora. Your right of reply, Councillor Larry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I thank colleagues for their thoughtful discussion around this. There's no doubt that there's a lot of passion and engagement around this topic. Councillor O'Malley talked about clarity of purpose, and there's no doubt that there is some confusion around catering for the music sector versus the performing arts sector, although it is a part of the performing arts sector. My understanding is that what is required for a live band, for example, for live music, is quite different from what is required for theatre. But I'm no expert in that. But I know that staff are mindful of that as we go through these discussions. Councillor Vandervis said all sorts of things, and some of them were around various buildings. I'd make the comment that we have assessed the various options. There was a very long list of possible buildings that could be used, and we went past the idea of building a new venue because of the cost, and we looked at what we already had, and where we landed was the Athenaeum and the Mayfair. Now, we're not discussing the choice today, we're simply noting a report, but I just mentioned that in passing. The Mayor's already covered off the fact that we have a temporary facility, whare rukutia, or almost, but I do appreciate that isn't going to cater for everything, and possibly not the touring companies. And I know that Councillor Barker mentioned that it is an important element of our theatre sector, but not the only one. Councillor Houlihan talked about engagement and offered a variety of suggestions in terms of venue, but we're not dealing with that today. Councillor Walker talked about the audience, and it certainly is an important element, and we have a very committed and passionate audience in terms of performing arts in Dunedin. And I was very pleased to see that Māori and Pacifica performing arts groups were included in this consultation, and certainly they are a strong voice in the Creative Dunedin Partnership. Mayor Hawkins, I think, hit the nail on the head around the dynamic nature of this, and it depends on really who you ask as to what their view is in terms of performing arts definition. It does have a fluidity about it. But we are in a different position now to what we were when we did the charcoal blue research, and that's why we went back. That's why we tasked the staff to go back and do that temperature check where they were up to. And several things have come to light since then. The black box concept and the Sims building, and it's up to us to look to see where, as Councillor Barker said, that those missing links are. I commend the staff for their work. It's really important, Mahi. It's not always easy because there will be very many views, and I would urge the performing arts community to continue to engage with us, continue the kōrero about this, because it is important, and I believe that we have a commitment around this table to progress and deliver on what is required for our performing arts community in terms of venues. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou. I'm going to put the motion that the committee notes the performing arts venue update report. All those in favour? Thank you. Against? Abstentions? Thank you. That is the motion carried. We're on to the second last item, number 17. That's the summary of advisory group meetings from October to December last year. Page 100 of your order papers. Oh, okay. Okay. Are there any questions? Councillor Vandervis?
Are we on to items for consideration of the chair?
Not yet, not quite.
Oh, pardon me, sorry, I skipped.
Right, we'll be there shortly, we hope. Councillor Barker.
I have one small question. I note in the minutes of the refugee steering group that they want that there's a work in progress on a terms of reference, and they want to change the name to Dunedin Former Refugee Steering Group, and it was said that it was going to come to January Council, and I just wonder what is the status of those terms of reference, just so we refer to the group correctly.
Yeah.
I don't mind if you can't answer, it's just
Yeah.
I
Sorry,
see Ms. Lanini was the person that wrote the report on that, I think.
Yes, to the chair. Sorry, Councillor, we can't answer that question, but we will come back to you by email.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to ask if I had the right end of the stick on page 111, which is under item 4 members updates. In some cases, people are waiting for 3 hours to speak to immigration. Is that on the phone? 3 hours on the phone?
Through the chair, sorry, Councillor, we'll have to come back to you on that. My understanding is that is correct, but I'll have to confirm.
Wow. okay, I would be interested to know that. It just, yeah, that's interesting. And could you also enlarge on the comment, Syrian women are not interested in crafts, page 113. Is there a backstory to that or further comment?
Sorry, Councillor, these are just the minutes of the meeting. I don't know. We can follow up and get some
That's
wider
okay.
commentary on that.
That's okay. That's fine. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, one more question was around, and you may not be able to answer this. There was feedback on the difficulty of accessing COVID records without the correct ID. I'm assuming that means former refugees who don't have their various that must be very difficult. I believe there was work going on around that, so that was interesting to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Thank you. I'm very happy to move that the committee notes a summary of the social wellbeing and disabilities issues advisory groups and the Dunedin former refugee steering group meetings for the period 1st of October to 31st of December 2021. And for seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Gary. I've just, in speaking to the motion, I just again record my thanks to the members of the community who, like everyone else, have been doing it really hard. They were doing it hard prior to COVID, and now it's even made it harder. And just thank you to all the staff for maintaining the relationships and the total. Are there any other speakers? I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Oh, were you wanting to speak? Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I wasn't quick enough.
Okay.
I was just wanting for people to look at page 115 through to 118, and just the amount of work the Disabilities Issues Advisory Group have done to contribute to really good decision making regarding a wide range of areas within Dunedin City to enable better access. And I just want to thank the members of that committee for doing so much work, and also thank the staff and the council who have come along and really listened and taken on board the issues people have raised. I just really think the Disabilities Issues Advisory Group has done a wonderful job in what they've contributed, but also the staff have done a wonderful job in listening. And I just want to thank all those involved.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, colleagues, for your patience. I'm going to put it again, and then, yeah. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Abstentions? Thank you. That is the motion carried. And now, Councillor Vandervis, we are on to your items for consideration by the Chair.
Thank you. I'm not really sure if this is something that's in your purview, but in going through the grant subcommittee's minutes, I noticed a lot of the amounts becoming really large, many of them over $50,000. And I was wondering if such large grants shouldn't perhaps be considered and dealt with by the entire council rather than just a subcommittee. These grants, I don't pass any judgment because I have no information on whether they're appropriate or not, but given the size of them, would it not be something that perhaps this whole committee should look at rather than, I'm talking about the really big ones, rather than just the subcommittee?
Thank you, sir. We will...
Well, it's set out in the delegations manual.
Yeah. We will.
The delegations manual, as I understand it, was set out at a time when I last did grants, which is going back quite a few years now, where they were typically $5,000. And now I find a lot of them are over $50,000. As a councillor, I would like to know a bit more about where these hundreds of thousands of dollars are going and what the reasons for that are. I have no doubt that they're being usefully used. But I think that all councillors should be involved in major financial decisions. and they're no longer $5,000 grants, was my point. If that's something that you could consider, I would appreciate it.
Yep. Well, we will take note of that and come back to you. We'll come back to everyone on that. Councillor O'Malley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's item 8, part 8, which was the minutes of one of the grants committees as well, where the waste minimisation grants are being were processed. And I just want to follow up from what I brought up yesterday, is can we just basically work out a way to cross-reference those into the waste environmental solutions activity reports as well?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, we'll follow that up. Any other items? Thank you. Now we come to the resolution to exclude the public. And I'll move that the committee, pursuant to the provisions of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, exclude the public from the following part of the proceedings as per the reasons on the agenda paper on page 120. You seconding? Thank you, Councillor Walker. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Thank you. That is the motion carried. Yes, Mr. Hayton.